Necrons have finally invaded my painting table. This week I have built a Necron Warden and I have primed him with some Chaos Black. I'm looking to take my trusty makeup brush that I will use some lead Belcher, and I will lightly dry brush all over the model to create a nice silver metallic undercoat. With the silver undercoat now done, we're looking to use the base color for our Necrons, which is the Runelord brass. Being a metallic paint, you want to use a cheap brush again, so make sure you're not using any of your expensive fine haired brushes. So get a little bit of rune brass, thin it down with a bit of water, and just get the model covered in all the areas where the rune brass should exist. So usually use some reference material like picture of a Necron or some box art, or anything you can find online will be useful. With this model there's a little bit of green, especially around the gun and the eye, so I'm going to use some of the Vallejo Game Wash paint. It's a green wash that there is, and I'm going to first start by putting a little bit of the wash in the recesses around the little nodules in the gun, and that's to try and create a little bit of shadow and a little bit of glow around the green lighting that will appear over time. I'm also going to put a little bit of this in around the eyes area. To continue working with green and to build up the green areas of the model, next we're going to use some Warpstone glow. We're going to work the edges around where the nodules on the weapon is, and we're also going to paint the cable that runs from the back of the model to the weapon that the model uses. Just gently do some edge highlighting and get that green on that cable quite nicely. Don't worry if you hit any of the silver areas, it's not too urgent. We can always touch that up in a little bit. If you're liking this video, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and share the video if you can. Also, if you can add a comment and say that I've subscribed, it'll be brilliant. I will reply to all comments where I can too. While we wait for some of the greens to dry, let's paint some of the gold bits around the Necron's neck. There are some talismans or some markings around the neck that have some symbols which look quite interesting. So I tend to use the side of one of my cheap brushes to just sort of touch onto the high areas of this particular part of the model to bring out the symbols and show a little bit of the color. I also use a dry brush to dry brush some of my Retributor Armour all over the side skirt of the model. As the paint dries on your model, you'll notice some areas start to become a little bit more translucent or transparent. You might need to add some more layering or some more paint, so go back to your Runelord brass and just touch up any areas that you might need to patch. Another thing that I like to do when painting miniatures is to use a bit of Runefang steel to paint the top of my weapons to give the effect of light shining off particularly exposed parts of the metal, so metal area that could have been chipped or had some scratching or something that could have occurred for the weapon to naturally be exposed from just a straightforward black. The final bits of green would be to use a little bit of Moot Green layer paint and touch the tip areas of the green areas we want to really bring some glow or some lighting out. So things like the nodules on the weapon or in the center of the eye of the model will be useful areas to put a Moot Green. With all of our base layers done, we can add a little bit of character by adding some Reikland flesh shade across the entire model's gold and brass areas. So we'll use a shading brush and get into most of the recesses around where the gold is and where the brass is. So really try and focus the shading in sort of the grooves and the slot areas around the top of the arms and around the gold areas. Continuing to add character to our model, we're going to mix a little bit of Runefang steel and Runelord brass together to create a slight lighter tone of the Runelord brass. With this mix, we're going to touch the top areas of the armor, the corner edges, and particular areas where we think light would hit the model if the model was standing in sunlight or equivalent light. Continuing to build up the detail on our model, we now go back to Retributor Armour, and all the gold areas on the model that have exposed areas where light would hit, we want to brighten up where the Reikland fresh shade might have made things a bit darker. With most of our model now base painted, edge highlighting and detail added, we just need to go over some of the black areas with Abaddon black, like the foot for example, that might have had some Runelord brass painted, or some of the recesses where it should be black, even on the weapon where there might have been too much silver you want to touch up. So go back over the area that should be black, just add a little bit of black to keep that interest in the model and what it should look like. Feel free to add a bit of black scratches wherever you think could add a bit of value to your model too, but just go around the model and touch up the black areas. The final thing to do on your model is to paint the skull on the base of the model itself. We're going to use Wraithbone base paint for that, and just get a nice thin coating of that with some water mixed in with the paint. Once you've done that, you can shade it up a little bit, and then feel free to decorate the base in whichever way you want. And that's it really for my first ever Necron painted. I thought he came out quite nice. The edge highlighting and the colours are quite amazing. I must admit the video doesn't really do the model justice until you see it in person. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you some insights on how to paint your Necrons going forward. If you haven't already, hit that like, subscribe, share button, and leave a comment saying that you subscribed, and I'll reply the best I can.